Okay, so Kelsey Grammer, right. 70 years old, expecting his eighth child. I mean, when that headline broke, it really made me stop and think, what does that tell us about fatherhood later in life, especially, for famous guys? So today, that's what we're doing, a deep dive into this trend, really. Famous men becoming dads, well, much later than you might expect. We want to get into who they are, sure, but also, like, what's their experience actually like? And what does it all say about, I don't know, family, career, maybe legacy?
Exactly. And we've got a good stack of material to work with here. Recent news, interviews, lists of celebrities and their families, lots of detail. Our goal is basically to pull out the most interesting bits, the key takeaways, and, the surprising stuff, just to give you a quick way to get up to speed on this whole fascinating topic.
All right, let's dive in then, starting with the news that kicked this off for us. Kelsey Grammer, he's 70, his wife Kate Walsh is 46, and yep, expecting their fourth together, his eighth overall. Kate apparently showed her baby bump just, mid-June, June 14th.
Yeah.
And then the news was confirmed.
Yeah, it's really something, and it highlights just how, well, expansive his family is. With Kate, he's already got Faith, who's 12, Gabriel 10, and James 8. But like you said, eighth overall. His first child, Spencer, was born way back in 1983, so his kids range in age from, 41 down to 8, soon to be a newborn.
Yeah.
And that's across several relationships. Spencer with his first wife, Doreen Alderman Greer, who's 33, with Barry Buckner. Then Mason, 23, and Jude, 20, with Camille Grammer. It's quite the family tree.
Wow. Over 40 years between his first and, well, his next child. That's incredible. And he seems pretty open about it. I saw that quote where he said the happiest he ever is if they're all in the same room together. He even sort of credits his acting career for making this big family possible, which is an interesting angle.
It is, but what's also interesting and maybe a bit more nuanced is what he said about playing catch-up. Especially with his older kids, the first two. He admitted that, but he also sounded determined, saying things like, I'm still their dad, so you can always have a chance to show up.
Playing catch-up. That really lands, doesn't it? It suggests maybe some regrets, or at least a feeling of time lost.
It does. And he also mentioned being proud that several of his kids are going into entertainment too, like a sense of connection there.
So is that a common theme, this catching up idea? Or do some guys just see later fatherhood as the right time, maybe because of their careers, not despite them? What else did you find?
That's a great question. And honestly, we see a bit of both. It's definitely not just Kelsey Grammer. This is surprisingly common among well-known figures. Let's look at some other big names, people who became dads really, really late in life. Okay, how about Al Pacino? He had his fourth child, a son named Roman, just last year, June 2023. Pacino was 83.
83, wow, okay.
Yeah. With Noor Alfallah. He already had his daughter Julie Marie and then twins, Anton James and Olivia Rose. And his take on it, he said, it's very special. This is really special coming at this time. Doesn't sound like regret there, more like a profound appreciation.
Right, like a bonus chapter almost.
Exactly. And then there's Robert De Niro, also pretty recent. April 2023, he welcomed his seventh child, Gia Virginia, with Tiffany Chen. De Niro was 79.
Seventh, goodness.
Yep. He's got a big family, too, including an adopted daughter, Drana, his son, Raphael, twins, Julian and Aaron, Elliot, and Helen Grace. So Gia makes 7. And his thoughts, he talked about responsibility, saying fatherhood is a mystery, it's a lot of excitement, but it's scary and you do your best. It sounds like he's still grappling with the sheer, well, the everything of it, even at 79.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Is it about having more wisdom? Or maybe just more resources and time later in life?
Yeah.
Or is it just different?
Probably a mix of all those things. The quotes definitely suggest a different perspective, a shift. And it's not just actors. Let's talk rock and roll.
Ah, okay. The rock legends. I bet there are a few examples there.
Oh, definitely. Mick Jagger, for starters. He had his 8th child, Devereaux, back in December 2016. Jagger was 73.
8th for him, too, and 73.
Right. With Melanie Hamrick, and get this, he's already a grandfather 5 times over and a great-grandfather twice.
Wow. That's spanning generations.
Totally. And he's talked about how being a good father is a lot of work, needing a lot of time, which is kind of refreshing to hear from, Mick Jagger. He also made this funny comment about his kids having a rock and roll routine, not wanting to go to bed.
Huh. Like father, like son, maybe? What about his bandmate, Ronnie Wood? I remember he had twins fairly recently.
You got it. Ronnie Wood and his wife Sally Humphreys welcomed twin daughters Gracie Jane and Alice Rose in May 2016. He was 68.
Twins at 68.
Yep. He's got 6 kids total now, and 6 grandkids, too. His wife Sally said the twins definitely have him wrapped around their little fingers. Sounds like he might be a bit softer this time around.
Could be. And then there's Rod Stewart. He also had kids later, didn't he?
He did. With Penny Lancaster, sons Alastair and Aidan. Rod was 60 for the first and 66 for the second.
And he has other older children, too, a lot of them.
Right. Including his daughter, Sarah Streeter, who was put up for adoption, and he connected with her when she was an adult. And Sarah actually said something quite moving about it. Rod has actually come into my life in a big way. Now we're at the start of a new chapter, and that's wonderful. That's about reconnecting, like Kelsey Grammer mentioned.
That's lovely. It's interesting, though, how Jagger and Wood still talk about the work involved, even with all their fame and fortune.
Yeah, it grounds it a bit, doesn't it? It's not just this glamorous thing. It's still parenthood.
Okay, so we've covered some major actors and rock stars.
Yeah.
Any other fields or other actors with maybe different takes?
Oh, yeah. Plenty more actors. Let's see. Jeff Goldblum. He became a dad for the first time pretty late. Welcome Sons Charlie Ocean at 62 and River Joe at 64 with his wife Emily Livingston.
Goldblum. Right. How did he describe it? Knowing him, it was probably unique.
Huh. It was. He called being a dad around 70 revivifying. Said parenting is challenging and it's sometimes maddening and very volatile. They can be like feral creatures unleashed. But then he added, oh yeah, and sweet and amazing. It's great. Classic Goldblum, really. Captures the chaos and the joy.
Revivifying. I like that. A shot of energy.
Exactly. And then you have someone like Steve Martin. He had his first child, a daughter, at 67 with Anne Stringfield. They've kept her name private. But his reflection is really powerful. He said point blank, if I had had a child earlier, I would have been a lousy father because I would have misplaced my attention on my career.
Wow. That's incredibly honest.
It really is. He feels his life path, waiting until later, led him to a real happiness. That speaks directly to your earlier question about timing. For him, later was better.
That's profound. It really counters the idea that you have to do things young. What about, say, Paul McCartney? He had a daughter later, too, right? Beatrice?
Yep, Beatrice with Heather Mills. He was 61. He already had older kids, of course, with Linda. And he had this funny line about how he used to guide his older kids, but now that they're older, they're guiding me, acknowledging that shift in dynamic.
Nice. And we can't forget Clint Eastwood, another one with a large family over many years.
Absolutely. His 8th child, Morgan, was born when he was 66. And there's that fascinating story about his eldest daughter, Laurie Murray, whom he didn't even meet until she was in her 30s.
Oh, right. I remember hearing that. Quite a complex family history there.
For sure. He's got 5 grandkids, too. His son, Scott Eastwood, described him as an old-school dad who raised him with integrity. So maybe a more traditional approach, even later in life.
So Steve Martin's point about career focus.
Yeah.
That seems really key for some of these guys. It's like they needed to get that out of their system first.
It certainly looks that way for some, yeah. It suggests that maybe intense career ambition and early fatherhood didn't feel compatible for them. Later on, perhaps with established success, there's more space, mentally and maybe literally, for family.
Makes sense. And you mentioned different paths.
Yeah.
What about surrogacy? That's opened doors too.
Definitely. Elton John is a prime example. He and David Furnish welcomed their sons, Zachary and Elijah, via surrogate. Elton was 63 and 66.
And he seems completely transformed by it, from what I've read.
Oh, absolutely. He said, having children changed everything about my life. He talked about how the simplest things became more valuable than any hit record or possession. That's a huge shift in priorities.
Yeah. And David Furnish also felt it was better they came to it later.
Yes, he mentioned being grateful for coming to parenting later, suggesting maybe they appreciate it more or have more wisdom to offer.
Okay, and who else? Billy Joel, another musician.
Right, Billy Joel. Had daughters Della Rose at 66 and Remy Ann at 68 with his wife Alexis Roderick.
How did he feel about it?
Pretty thrilled, apparently. He said it feels fantastic, and he made a joke about being hands-on. We're awake when they're awake, and we're sleeping when they're sleeping, which, you know, is the reality of newborns at any age.
Huh? True enough. It's interesting, though, you mentioned this isn't entirely new. There are historical examples, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a modern celebrity thing. Think about Anthony Quinn, the actor.
Oh, right. Zorba the Greek?
That's him. He had 12 children. His last 2, Antonia and Ryan, were born when he was in his late 70s and early 80s with Catherine Benvin, whom he married when he was 82.
12. Wow. Did he say anything about being an older dad?
He did, something really insightful. He said, I think that this time I'm a better father. These kids I haven't spent a day away from. That suggests a real commitment, maybe
Oh,
making up for time away from older kids, like Grammer mentioned.
a better father this time. That's powerful.
And then there's Charlie Chaplin, father of 10. His last child, Christopher James, was born when Chaplin was 73. Remember, he married Una O'Neill when she was just 18 and he was 54. They had a big family together later in his life. So these huge age gaps in later fatherhood, they have precedence.
It really puts it in perspective. But maybe one of the most direct quotes about changing priorities came from Larry King.
Yes, Larry King. Became a dad again in his mid-60s with sons Chance and Cannon. His admission was incredibly candid. He said, "Before Chance and Cannon, I was so work-oriented. I loved my kids and I tried to be a good father, but work always came first. I paid a price for that because at the end of the day, nothing is more important than your home life."
That just cuts right to it, doesn't it? Work came first, and he regretted it. Later fatherhood was a chance to prioritize differently.
Exactly. So when you pull it all together, what you see is this incredible range. Guys becoming dads in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. Sometimes it's a first time, sometimes it's adding to a huge existing family. The motivations seem varied too, maybe making up for lost time, maybe finding it's finally the right time after a demanding career, maybe just the unexpected joy of it. But the sheer number and visibility of these men does make you think.
It really does. We heard Kelsey Grammer talking about playing catch-up, Anthony Quinn feeling like a better father later on, Steve Martin saying he couldn't have done it earlier because of his career focus. It's like later life offers this different lens on parenting, maybe more patience, more presence,
Yeah.
or just a clearer sense of what matters.
I think that's a big part of it. And connecting this back to you, the listener, these stories, they're more than just, celebrity gossip. They touch on something universal. They're about personal growth, about how priorities can dramatically shift as we age, and about that deep, enduring desire for family connection. It suggests that timeline we often feel pressured by. Maybe it's more flexible than we think.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you listening? I mean, looking at these very accomplished men, it's clear the path to fatherhood, or maybe just a deep family connection, isn't one size fits all. It can happen over decades.
Right. So maybe the question to leave you with is this. We live in a world that pushes career, pushes achievement, often early on. What can we maybe learn from people who find this profound sense of fulfillment, this feeling of being revivified, by leaning into family much later in their journey?
Yeah. Perhaps it's just a reminder that, it's never really too late for new beginnings or to change what you focus on. Or, like Kelsey Grammer said, to simply find a way to show up for the people who matter most. Makes you think.